We join Discovery in the Stazioni Marittime in Venice, which is dwarfed by these great cruising leviathans. We take the port shuttle to St. Mark's to begin our exploration on foot of the city of Venice. And look what they've done to the Bridge of Sighs. It's surrounded by advertising hoardings, hiding restoration work on nearby buildings. Napoleon III called St. Mark's Square the greatest drawing room in Europe. Well, it needs redecorating very badly now. The wallpaper's gone mouldy. Florian's Cafe has been a Venetian institution since the 19th century, and we went in there for an expensive cup of coffee. And then on with our stroll in the general direction of Piazzale Roma to return to the ship in due course. The Goldoni Theatre is a rarity in Venice, being in the Art Deco style. At last we emerge onto the Grand Canal, near the Rialto Bridge. Absolutely heaving with tourists, including us of course. Across the Rialto Bridge we pass near the old fish market, still in regular use, but not today because it's Sunday. Our walk takes us through some quieter parts of Venice where there are fewer tourists and some real Venetians might actually live. In due course we emerge opposite Venice's railway station, Santa Lucia. And the controversial new bridge, Constitution Bridge, only the fourth bridge across the Grand Canal, only opened a few days before we arrived. The glass panels put some people off apparently, but the main problem is its inaccessibility by people in wheelchairs, or for that matter, wheeling luggage across between the station and Piazzale Roma. I wonder how many cases get lost in the canal this way. "10 o'clock that evening, Discovery slips out of the docks into Giudecca Canal, on its way out past St. Mark's towards the lagoon and across the Adriatic Sea. Tito Square in Koper, Slovenia, known as Capodistria in Italian. Part of Italy until the Second World War, Koper only became part of Yugoslavia in 1954. This part of Slovenia is officially bilingual between Slovenian and Italian, as can be seen by all the street signs. For centuries, it was part of the Venetian Empire. Ted's posing on the Da Ponte fountain, installed by a Venetian governor to remind everyone of the Bridge of Sighs back home in Venice. St. Basso's Church nearby. The courtyard of one of several Venetian palazzi still in existence. The Muda Gate in what remains of the old city walls. The interior of the Cathedral of the Assumption on Tito Square. The Rotunda of St. John the Baptist. The Carpaccio House and a restored old salt warehouse with St. Justine's Column. Zadar, Croatia, and St. Donat's Church, a 9th century Byzantine church built on the site of the old Roman Forum and making use of some recycled stones from the Forum. And there is the Forum, being excavated now, and St. Mary's Church. People's Square, with its renovated 16th century tower. Five Wells Square, predictably named. And this is the town gate, proudly displaying the Venetian connection of Zadar, and over there is a very nice restaurant where we had lunch. Another gate in the old town walls, and from up here you get good views over the old town. Zadar is virtually an island, and across from its safe harbour is in effect the mainland. There's Discovery out at anchor. St. Chrysogonus' Church and the 12th century St. Anastasia's Cathedral. Greeting to the Sun art installation absorbs sunlight during the day and apparently performs quite a colourful light show after dark. The sound is coming from the sea organ, which uses the wave power to force air through pipes under the quayside to, well, make this sound. Hvar is an island off the Croatian coast, and we're tendering in from Discovery to Hvar town. The town is clustered round the picturesque little harbour. St. Stephen's Cathedral at the end of the main square. What we see here today is essentially what the Venetians left us. That's the Venetian fortress up on the hill. Behind the harbour, the town consists of narrow streets, some of them very steep indeed. And after our morning sightseeing, we're off to Dubrovnik this afternoon. We arrive in Dubrovnik in time for a marvellous meal in a very smart restaurant just outside the old town. Then we take a stroll through the old town, which is very well floodlit and shows up these wonderful old buildings very well indeed. In the morning, it's back again to see it all by daylight. Dubrovnik was declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1979, but that didn't stop the Yugoslav National Army from shelling the old city in 1991 following Croatia's declaration of independence. The city has now been completely restored to its former glory following UNESCO guidelines. The 18th century cathedral contains relics of St. Blaise, Dubrovnik's patron saint. The old harbour. Our last look at Dubrovnik's city walls before Discovery heads off south down the coast towards Kotor Bay. This is sometimes described as Europe's southernmost fjord. It is traditional to sound the ship's whistle as we pass these islands, so stand by. This is the town of Perast, another Venetian stronghold, which apparently Montenegrin ships captains like to retire to. By the time we got to Kotor itself, the town was completely buried under wet weather. Next afternoon, Discovery is anchored off Argostoli, the main town of Kefalonia in the Greek Ionian Islands. The Ionian Islands were a British protectorate from 1815 to 1864, and during that time the British built the bridge across the lagoon and the monument to their own presence here. Virtually every building in Kefalonia was destroyed by a massive earthquake in 1953, so Argostoli's main town square is entirely modern. Being an afternoon in Greece, almost all the shops, of course, were shut. The Greek Orthodox Church is a very traditional one, and even a very new church like this one looks a lot like a very old Greek Orthodox Church. Next afternoon, Discovery is moored off Santorini in what is the caldera of a massive volcanic eruption over 3,500 years ago. And on top of the cliff, the town of Thera, the main town of Santorini. Our trip takes us up Prophetess Ilias for a panoramic view of a large part of the island, including its airport, and an aerial view of Discovery. We continue with a walk through Pyrgos, which at one time was the island's capital, to see several examples of traditional Santorini architecture. Then to the northwestern tip of the island, to the village of Ia. Tourists come here in their thousands to see the sunset facing due west, but we won't be here late enough to have that sight this time. Back to Thera to pause for refreshment and take in the view before it's time to go back to Discovery. And here we managed to meet up again with our fellow traveller Frank, who's had a more exciting day than we have. Sunday morning finds us in Mykonos, where an early arrival has meant that Discovery is berthed alongside when some more expensive ships have to anchor out in the bay. A fish market still operates on the quayside. We spent our full day in the main town, Kora, which is a warren of shiny white painted, very well kept streets and nice harbour front buildings, largely if not entirely given over to tourism, and of course the windmills for which this island is famous. In the 1980s, Mykonos was a favourite stopping off place for the international jet set, and apparently some of the rich and famous still have places here where they can come and hide from the rest of us. Some sort of festival going on, but we never found out what. An incredible number of Greek Orthodox churches on Mykonos, some of them privately owned. And back to the harbour, where a tame pelican is performing for the public. Time to head back on board. And this evening, it's the parade of chefs in the Carousel Lounge.
Nice to see you.
Followed by the Filipino Crew Show. Next morning we're in Kusadasi, Turkey, which is a very busy cruise port. And the town is a very popular base for Turkish tourism, with shops and more or less traditional Turkish bazaars. It also has an ancient caravanserai, which has now been turned into a hotel, shops and restaurants. In the afternoon, we take the ship's visit to Ephesus, the main purpose of our call here. The Odeum, dating from about 150 AD, was originally roofed, and it was a theatre holding about 1,500 people. This is the Temple of Hadrian. The terrace houses, or houses of the rich, are 6 residential buildings dating over a period of several centuries. They're being very substantially restored, indeed partially reconstructed, and are covered by a protective structure. Back in the sunshine, the facade of the great library of Ephesus. The marble way leads past the lower agora, which was closed during our visit, towards the Great Theatre. This had a capacity of 44,000 and is believed to be the largest theatre in the ancient world. Nearby, some Roman sarcophagi have been gathered together. And our way out of the ancient site takes us inevitably through the retail opportunity. At 10 p.m. departure time from Kusadasi lets us see some of the other ships in port lit up, and we leave under the watchful eye of Kemal Atatürk. Next morning we are off Anzac Cove on the Gallipoli Peninsula, scene of the costly Dardanelles campaign in 1915. The ship held a memorial service, followed by a wreath laying and the playing of the last post. Then we sail past the various war memorials. These two are the French and British. And this is the Turkish memorial, which is in fact to the dead of all nations. And then it's into the Sea of Marmara and on to Istanbul.